second one goes to Sandy Parker.
There you go.
Ruth Abel and Sandy Parker.
I got it written down.
All right.
All right, let's move on.
We are now recording, and welcome to the Women's Garden Party, and we're going to share the screen of Brian Frame's garden. So here we go. Yes, and give me a thumbs up if you can see it.
Where?
No?
I'm looking at,
No,
yeah.
I can't see it.
Okay, we will
I see you
stop
body
that share
stuffing, Bill.
and go back to one more. And get it. And, sorry, I had it ready to go, and then I lost it.
You'll find it.
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now. All right. And there we go. A garden to collaborate. Here we go. And open it. And video number 2. And we're going to open that. Be ready to share sound.
Here in Rancho Cucamonga.
Let's go.
Hi, I'm Brian Frame, and this is my garden here in Rancho Cucamonga. I'm so excited to show it to you. I have 3 special spots that I want to take you in my garden. Come with me. So this is the first garden that I wanted to show you. This garden here is my dad's rose garden. So a couple years ago, when we sold the childhood home that I grew up in, the new owners were going to cement in all of my dad's planters, and so I asked if I could take all of the roses. So these rose bushes that you see here are over 30 years old, and they're still producing beautiful roses. So every time I look at this garden, I think a fond memory of my dad, and I give him a call.
So how hard is it to replant roses?
Roses are a very volatile type of plant, and so when I replanted all of these, they punished me for about a year, and they didn't grow or do anything, and I thought I had killed them. But then I went to Armstrong and talked to the guy there, and he said, no, roses rarely die, and so all you've got to do is really just wait on them and fertilize them and cut them back very far in the winter so that they can do new growth, and they've all come back, so I'm really happy about it. This garden over here on this side of the yard has been a real challenge for me. I started this garden by growing vegetables and fruits. So I grew squash and asparagus and Brussels sprouts and pineapple and cantaloupes and all different kinds of peppers, and I had very little success with it. Some reason vegetables just don't grow well in my yard, and so everything I was getting was really small and flavorless, and so I just kind of gave up on vegetables. And about a couple years ago, I started to hoard bulbs. So every store I went into that had big bags of flower bulbs, I would buy those bags of bulbs and I would store them in my garage. Well, December of 2020, and as the pandemic was really heating up, I had amassed these 200 bulbs. And so what I did was I ripped out all of the vegetables that I had growing in here, all of the fruits, and completely redid the soil and made it into a flower garden instead. So I have over 200 bulbs planted in this planter. And the beauty of bulbs is that they come back year after year, but always at different times. So sometimes I look in this garden and I may see beautiful daffodils blooming. And then another part of the year, I may look in the garden and I may see tulips coming in. So it's kind of the gift that keeps giving out of the side window of my house all year long, and I really love it.
So any trick to planting bulbs?
So bulbs all have to be planted at different depths, and that's where the internet is so good for this type of knowledge. You want to plant a crocus at a different depth than you want to plant something like one of these gladiolas that are coming up here. So you want to look at the different depths, and you always want to make sure that you're planting your bulbs with the stem part back every year, year after year, with bigger and more beautiful flowers every year. One trick to planting bulbs is that once the flower is gone, go ahead and cut that off, but don't a robust flower the next year as well. Amaryllis poking through back here.
Oh.
Little teeny guy. That's the fun of it, is every here, this one here. To find the flower opens up. Now this planter here, this is in my front yard, and this is one of my favorites as well. This is a color planter, and it's a mix of bulbs and other types of flowers. So sometimes during the year, these beautiful agapanthus are have big purple flowers that are just gorgeous. And then other times of the year, down here,
Keep losing his audio.
Well, we're losing the whole video. I'm sorry.
Mel, if you turn off
here, these
your
little hyacinths, they'll bloom and they give off the most amazing scent that you can't.
Mel, if you turn off your video, it'll be better.
Okay. Happy to do that.
Can't believe. Over here, we've got this gigantic hydrangea, and you can see in the hydrangea.
Hey Mel, are these videos by chance downloaded on your computer, or you only have them off the internet here?
Well, I had them on Google Drive.
That many of the flowers are just starting to come in and just starting to get ready for spring. So we should have a beautiful crop.
Everyone's aware it's not working.
Let me stop this and
Hydrangeas coming in soon.
Try to start again on Google Drive.
I want to take you in my garden. Come with me. Hi, I'm Brian. Happen. Like this one here, I don't know what color. Hi. Hi, I'm Brian Frame, and this is my garden here.
We're going to let it catch up on the buffer. I'm sorry.
Don't cut the greenery. You want to leave this foliage as long as it lasts, because that will make the bulb bigger deep into the ground and give you a more robust flower the next year as well. There's an amaryllis poking through back here. Little teeny guy. That's the fun of it, is every day something new pops open and you just get to watch and see all the miracles happen. Like this one here, I don't know what color it's going to be, but I'm excited to find out. I'm hoping for yellow. Like yellow would be cool. You never know what the color is going to be until the flower opens up. Now this planter here, this is in my front yard, and this is one of my favorites as well. This is a color planter, and it's a mix of bulbs and other types of flowers. So sometimes during the year, these beautiful agapanthus have big purple flowers that are just gorgeous. And then other times of the year, down here, these little hyacinths, they'll bloom and they give off the most amazing scent that you just can't believe. Over here, we've got this gigantic hydrangea, and you can see in the hydrangea that many of the flowers are just starting to come in and just starting to get ready for spring. So we should have a beautiful crop of hydrangeas coming in soon.
How do you predict when they're going to bloom?
You know, it's hard to know when they're going to bloom. The gladiolus, I will tell you, are the most predictable. Every day at the first week of June, every year after year after year, the gladiolus open like that. But the other flowers, they're also unpredictable. Sometimes I get them in January and sometimes I get them in March. This is a special one back here. Other times of the year, this planter is giving beautiful Stargazer lilies. And so you can see that the Stargazer lily, he's about to come back, but that won't happen until the end of the summer, and it is going to be a gigantic, beautiful lily plant, all different colors.
So how long have you been gardening for?
So I've been gardening for years and years. Most recently, the past 5 years, we've lived in this house. And when we first started in this yard right here, there was nothing but dirt and cinder block. So you can see it was a lot of hard work to put all this together. My first priority was to get some privacy back here, because in Rancho, the houses are very close together. So we planted these gigantic birds of paradise, which have just grown to be 20 feet tall. And then the ficus that are behind me as well give us a lot of nice, beautiful privacy in our backyard. Plus, they add a tropical feel that really feels good and rewarding when you sit around in it.
So why garden?
You know, I love to garden because it's a very peaceful practice. It's something that I can do in solitude that is reviving to my soul. It's just me and some music and the sunshine and the plants. And I really just get into having that personal time to myself to be able to just be in creation and, you know, have a little quiet time once in a while.
What are some of your favorite things to plant?
I love planting the bulbs. I've really gotten into planting bulbs over the last couple years. And the thing about bulbs is that you plant them and then you have to wait months and months and months for them to bloom. But it's kind of a reward type of deal, right? You put it in the ground, and then after all that anticipation, they really grow into these beautiful flowers. So my favorite plant of all time has to be this Plumeria and its sister that's back over here. This Plumeria is actually 16 years old. So if you've ever been to Hawaii and you've gone to the ABC store, you can get those little Plumeria cuttings for $5 or $7, and they're about this length right here. So I grew this entire plant from one of those cuttings. It took 16 years to get this big, and I've had lots of trials and tribulations and almost killed it a couple times, but it's really doing well now. And in the summertime, when it blooms, it is full of beautiful Plumeria flowers. So it just smells like a Hawaiian vacation every time you step into the backyard.
So do you start a plumeria in a pot, or did you plant it directly to the ground?
For plumerias, you want to start them in a pot. And I like to start a lot of big trees in pots like this. So you put it in a little pot, and once it gets a really solid root ball on it, that's when you can transfer it to the ground. It'll harden enough to be transferred into the ground. So this one was probably about 5 or 6 feet tall before I put it into the ground out of a very large pot. And then we got the last probably 2 or 3 feet out of it just being in the ground and being very healthy. So for a garden this size, my lot is about 5,000 square feet. It takes me at least a couple hours every week just to go around and pull off the dead and groom and trim and prop things up and just kind of fuss with the garden. But it does take those 2 hours every single week where I have to be out there. And that's in addition to the lawn service that I pay for. So I have gardeners come in and just do the lawn and blow up all of the excess leaves. But I spend a lot of time gardening. And as far as the tools that I use when I'm out in my garden, I think a bucket is the gardener's best friend. So I have this fancy thing that goes over my bucket here, but you don't even need something like this. I keep one bucket with all of my tools in it. I've got a pair of gloves, a little scraper here, I've got a little shovel, I've got my big choppers, and I've got my little choppers. And this is probably the most important tool that you need as a gardener, is a really good pair of choppers. I love the Corona brand. This is my second pair of Coronas. I beat the first one to heck, and so it's nice to have a brand new sharp pair. But what I do is I just go around the garden and I trim and I snip and I trim and I snip and I put the junk in the buckets and I just kind of walk around. But it does take a couple hours every week to get all of that done and to keep it to the level of maintenance that I like, to make sure everything's nice and clean all the time.
Do you have to do anything to maintain the shears or the clippers?
So with my favorite tool, it's really nice to have a good pair of clippers, but they have to be sharp. So when they're not sharp, you can sharpen them with just a regular knife sharpener, or you can take them over to a locksmith or a place like that, and they'll sharpen them for you too. But especially if you're cutting really woody type things, I like to trim the trees and cut branches off sometimes. These absolutely need to be sharp. And also your large ones need to be sharp as well, because you're chopping leaves with these ones. Another great tool that is a 100% necessity of people of a certain age, 40 plus like myself, you've got to have a really good pair of knee pads, because you'll be on your knees squatting down, or you'll be on your knees on cement or on bricks, and you won't notice it the day of, but you'll definitely notice it the day after if you don't wear your knee pads when you're out there gardening. I'm also an organic gardener. I don't like to use a lot of chemicals or pesticides or things like that, because I've got a small dog that goes around my yard. So I use insecticidal soap, and that basically takes all of the pests that irritate me, the aphids on my roses and the different types of things that go through the bulb garden over there. But I use a organic and just non-chemical type of thing, and this insecticidal soap works really good and keeps all the pests away from my flowers. So my tip for novice gardeners or people just getting started is start out small so that you gain success. That will give you confidence, right? Just like anything in life. I started out with just a couple plants, and now I maintain hundreds of plants every single week. There is no shame in going to the store and buying yourself a little plant that is already blooming or already, growing or whatever, and putting it in the ground and calling it your own. As you cultivate it and get better and better, and the plant gets bigger and bigger, you'll gain more confidence. And then you'll start to learn things like about soil types and fertilizers and what type of watering you need for this area and those types of things. But all of that comes later. Start small and just get a couple plants and put them in the ground, and you will find success and you'll find happiness that way. And then as you grow and progress, you can start growing from bulbs or seeds, or even propagating your own plants from existing cuttings that you already have. Gardening is a hobby that is so therapeutic. For me, it's my solitude time, and it's so wonderful to be in the presence of God's creation all around you.
Wow. That's just great. Yeah.
Nice job, nice job, nice job. Let's go right to Peggy.
Yes. So thank you, Brian, for the practical tips you shared, especially about the tools. You know, having the right tool makes all the difference. I especially verify the knee pads. And I like your emphasis on being environmentally sustainable, using non-toxic pest control, and insecticidal soap is great stuff. So we really appreciate your sharing all of your valuable information. Now we're going to turn it over to Peggy C. and Donna for more drawing.
A couple of prizes. Prize number 3, Miss Peggy. Where is she? Oh, you're on mute, hun.
Okay, Tad Cressy.
Okay, go to prize number 4. We have 11 prizes to give.
All right, goes to Barbara Fryer.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, and then we go back to Mel, yes?
No, I have an introduction. So
Oh,
next we travel to Ontario to visit Judy and Ed Ritterbusch's garden, which overflows with blossoms even in the earlier spring when this tour was filmed. Judy refers to her garden as being of the English garden type, referring to the style in vogue during the late 19th and early 20th centuries in Europe and in the US. The English or cottage garden of Gertrude Jekyll fame was a reflection of a return to nature, a direct repudiation of the clipped hedges and rigid geometry and the kind of overgrown hothouse flowers that were planted in the landscape. Judy's garden represents what's called the gardenesque style, in which the emphasis is on plants rather than the overall design. During that period, there were a lot of new plants being introduced to the Western world from China and Japan and even from Australia. And so people were collectors and they had a gardenesque style garden to show off the various things that they owned. And it fits very well in a smaller suburban garden plot as we have here. Judy is a lifelong gardener and she has an up close and personal relationship with all of her flowers, especially the roses. Take it away, Mel.
I'll ask that everyone put their mute on, please. We had a little background noise last time along with my technical problems, but let's see how we can go this time. Thanks. Here we go.
Ritterbusch, and this is my garden in Ontario. I'm happy to have Aaron and Josh here to help show you the garden, and you picked a perfect day to visit because the roses are beginning to bloom, and I'm going to show a few of them to you, and Aaron will guide us and ask us questions about the garden, and I'm happy to have you here.
Wow, look at this one.
This one, this is my favorite rose today because it really decided, it must have heard you were coming, and it just put on a beautiful show. And its name is Black Baccara, and it's a very dark rose. And I just appreciate any flower that decides to really go all out, and this one did that today.
So how long have you been gardening for?
I've been gardening since I was just a little kid with my grandma and then my mom and my sisters. We've just all been gardeners for life. But this garden we moved to in 1984. So that's 37 years that we've had this property. And as soon as we got here, we started planting roses and a few other things. And it's just, you know, that's a lot of years. So a lot of things got planted since 1984.
Wow, how many roses would you say you have in your garden?
Well, I know that I have over 100 because I kind of, in February, I have to prune them all, or end of January and beginning of February. And so I'll write on the calendar, 10 roses pruned today, you know. So by the time I get, you know, past 100, I quit counting. But it just motivates me to kind of keep track and check off a day and okay. And then the rest of the year, it's not so difficult, but the pruning time is kind of strenuous. And that's when you really know how many roses you've got. And when you buy the rose fertilizer, because they do like to be fertilized, a little time after they have been pruned, they'll put out new growth, and then it's time to fertilize. After that, they're pretty happy.
Okay, let's go to your backyard. So tell me, what was your first rose that you planted? Do you remember?
Oh, I do.
here?
I'll show it to you. I will. Yes, and I saved some of the orders that I got, the places that I sent away to get the roses, and most of them came from Jackson Perkins, and they were planted bare root. But the first one that I got, you can see it. It was planted in 1985, actually. It's that climbing rose up against the wall. And it's the first one that blooms every year. And it's 36 years old. And it's almost done blooming for right now, but it's the rose right there against the wall. First prize is what it's called.
First prize. Well, that's very fitting for your first rose.
You can tell it's just a little bit past, most of it needs to be trimmed off, but it's a beautiful rose and been a good bloomer all those years. It's gotten a little bit gawky shaped, but we love it anyway.
So tell me, what type of garden would you say your backyard is?
Well, I think what we would call it is kind of a higgledy-piggledy English garden, translated to Southern California. My grandma was English, and so a lot of the things that she planted, I've kind of fell in love with and tried to plant. A lot of those things don't work here, but my garden, whatever makes me happy to try to plant, to see bloom, is what I try to find space for. And it's a garden to share, so I can make bouquets, give starts of things to people. I don't think it's any one kind of a garden. I love all kinds of gardens. I love native gardens and dry gardens and just about every garden. But for me, I don't think I could ever settle on just one style. And I think the English garden and the cottage garden kind of allows you to just do whatever. And that's what I'm happiest with.
So this is a beautiful rose here. Which one is this?
It's a peppermint.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Peppermint candy, I think is its name. Yeah, peppermint candy.
I love that. Now you said you order your roses from a catalog.
I order, most of them I order from Jackson and Perkins, and I usually get them bare root in the winter. And then you plant them, you don't have to dig as big of a hole, and they seem to adapt pretty well. However, I sometimes buy roses in Ontario at Guerrero Roses on Euclid, and they are often, you can buy them any time of the year. They'll be in a big pot. And I've planted several roses from Guerrero and other places in the past. I would bring them home from as far away as Watsonville or from the beach, from Corona, the Rogers Gardens. Yes. But mainly I would make big orders from Jackson Perkins to really get started.
And so what do you have to do before you plant it? Fertilize the ground or just?
For the bare root roses?
Yeah.
You do want to amend the soil, especially if you have soil like mine, which isn't naturally rich. So you want to amend the soil and add compost or products to it that will make it fluffy and nice and give it room for its roots to grow, because they really are in a state of, I guess, they're not covered in dirt. They're just ready to be plunked into a big hole and amended.
I love this one here, these beautiful red.
This rose is called Alleluia, and it always does bloom around Easter time. And it's been there for quite a few years.
I noticed this one when I walked in, that peach one up there.
And that peach one is called, it's a climber, and it's called Royal Sunset.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it has lots of petals to it.
Yeah, it's very full, very full. Now, how long does it take to maintain something like this? How many hours do you say you spend a week or a month?
Really, it's like I said, in January and February, there's a lot of, it takes a lot of time to prune and fertilize. But the rest of the year, like when these are through blooming, I'll deadhead them. And
What's that mean?
That means like like this rose over here, most of the blossoms, like that one, you can see it's already turned brown. I'm going to cut that off so it doesn't look ugly, and also so that'll encourage a new bud.
Got it.
So that just takes not that much time. So roses will demand a lot in the early part of the year, and then they just keep on going for years, so I think the time is worth it.
What are some of the hardest things that you've tried to plant?
I was telling you earlier that I am a person who loves to try to grow vegetables, and I'm not very good at it. And so I have a little vegetable patch over here, and because we had no place to go last year, we were very close to home. I actually got some things started, but I've got zucchini, which I'm trying to grow, and I planted it twice this year. The first ones died. Last year, I managed to get one zucchini plant, or one zucchini from my plant. So I'm hoping to better that this year. So I've got radishes and lettuce and tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, and got raspberries over there. And those, I don't plant those every year. Those stay there and get trimmed.
So they just regrow every year?
They regrow.
Wow.
And you trim them back and they grow back. And I like to grow herbs. I just love coming out, picking my own things when I can.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, what about any tips for anyone who wants to start something in their backyard, a small garden?
Well, I think they're in a lucky place to live because we have the California garden to get ideas from, and you can look at the native plants, or you can go to Descanso or to Huntington. But as I was telling you earlier, I really recommend getting to know your area if you're new to the area, or just walking around your neighborhood and seeing what's growing well, and asking people. People love to talk about their gardens, obviously. I can't say enough about mine. The other thing I think we said was we didn't have the best soil here, and I think that's the most important thing, because you're going to be disappointed if you are trying to garden in a place where the soil needs improving. And so I do that first. And I didn't do that, so I kind of had to add as I went, but it'd be nice to start with really good soil.
You had said you use a lot of pots in your garden.
I use pots in my garden because my soil is kind of, in some places, really depleted, and in some places rocky, and some places have tree roots. So every pot that you see is a place where my husband didn't have to dig a hole, because I can't dig big holes anymore. So the pots dry out a little bit faster, but they help me to put things in places where it would be really impossible to get them to grow well. And I can control what kind of soil is there. I know it's compost and good potting soil, and I'll have better chances. I just have to water more often.
Well, thank you so much, Judy. Your garden is beautiful. I feel like I'm in a professional private garden in England somewhere. It's so beautiful.
Well, thank you for coming. I really enjoyed having you, and you picked a perfect day. And I hope that you did enjoy coming.
I did. Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Nicely
Thank
done.
you so much, Judy. That was beautiful. I appreciate how you share your garden with others. A few years ago, you and I co-hosted a ladies' tea in this garden and sat there among the roses. It was just beautiful. And as a congregation, we've all been blessed for many years that Ed and Judy have overseen the decorations for our Easter and Christmas season services and our worship spaces, as well as beautiful arrangements in the narthex back in the day when we would hang out on the narthex a lot more, and beautiful plants from their own gardens. So you've been sharing your garden for many years, and we greatly appreciate it. Good job to those of you who are using the chat to ask some questions and get some additional information. That's terrific. Now we're going to go back to some drawings. Peggy C and Donna.
I am
Are you
ready.
ready, Miss Peggy? Let's do 3 of them.
All right. Ron Torres.
Okay, he gets basket number 5. Number 6 goes to?
Number 6 goes to Mary Jane Merrill.
Hey, there you go. I will email you about connections to get these things, by the way, guys. Okay, and then number 7.
Number 7 goes to Janice Hoffman.
There you go. All right, keep going. We're good.
All right.
No more presents yet.
Not yet.
Back to videos.
Have to be patient. Yes.
Okay. Here we go.
We're on our way. Well, I got some things to say now, Mel.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Don't be rushing me. We're on our way to Upland to visit John Ballas and Terry Askull's garden. And also in the picture, literally, is Jake Burkle, honorable grandson and co-gardener some of the time. Here we see a garden that contributes many edible delights, as well as beauty, shade, and peaceful backdrops for gathering of family and friends. There are few places in the world where you can so successfully grow such a variety of fruit trees as in Southern California, both subtropical and temperate, as we will see. And John has also dedicated a space in his area, in his garden, for growing seasonal vegetables. And he shows us and Jake how to be precise and in preparing and in planting your vegetable garden. So let's see it, Mel.
Here we go.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to give you a tour of our backyard garden. And with me today is my grandson, Jake Burkle, and I'm John Ballas. So a little history here is we moved here in 2016, and this whole backyard wasn't very well organized. It didn't have hardly anything here that gave it a lot of aesthetic beauty. So I think in the first 3 years that we lived here, I planted 41 different perennial plants and put in a large raised bed that we grow summer and winter vegetables. And so I'll just show you some of the things we have. We started off with some of the big tropical plants like this philodendron, and then I think we put in 14 different rose bushes. And you'll see some of those right now are getting ready to go into full bloom. Just completely covered with buds, ready to burst out. And then we put in 5 different fruit trees. So you can, the first one you can see here is the fig tree, and it has the dark skin. So over the last 5 years, we've put in 6 different kinds of fruit trees, and I'll point these out to you. Right here is a fig tree, and this is a really nice dark-skinned fig that's got a lot of flavor. And then down here is the apricot tree, and this right now this is completely loaded with apricot fruit. So we're going to have to take really good care of it. So make sure that it's going to produce a lot of fruit for us. Probably sometime in late July they'll be ready. And then right here is a citrus tree. This is called a kumquat, and this is a really small little citrus fruit, and you can eat the whole thing, the skin and the flesh as well. So, and then that produces tons of small fruit for us. And then this right here is a persimmon tree. So I don't know if you're familiar with persimmons, but some of them you can eat the skin and some of you can't. And this one it's really sweet, but you have to peel it. So, and these will be ready probably sometime in next September. This is another fig variety, and it has green and yellow stripes, and I'd say it's probably my favorite fig. It's really delicious. It's just finished flowering, and it seems to produce fruit every other year. Two summers ago we had tons of avocados, so hopefully this year we'll get a bunch as well. Over here we have another citrus tree. This is a kumquat, and this produces tons of those yummy little citrus fruit. So we have a little small lemon tree here, and it'll produce maybe 30 some fruit for us, and it, you know, they'll be ready probably next fall. The first summer that we lived here, I put in this big raised bed. This is 64 square feet, and I think you'd be really surprised at how much edible vegetables we can produce out of this raised bed. So we started out with just a bunch of compost, and every year I have to add back because we'll use some as we produce loads of veggies. So we have 2 crops a year. We have a summer crop, which is what we just planted, and then during the winter we have plants that can survive our mild California winter. And last winter we had Swiss chard and kale, and then on the trellis here, so this is a trellis, and this is for crops that have that grow on vines, and this was covered with peas, which the snow pea, which is the edible pea pod. So about a week ago, Jake was out here to help me, and we planted Roma Italian beans, and you can see the little beans coming up here. If you look real close, you can see them coming up. So we have this will be filled with little bean plants, and these are the bush varieties, so we don't have to grow them on vines. So we'll get tons of really good, yummy Roma beans, won't we, Jake? Yep. So when these beans are done at the end of the summer, then we'll start to cycle again, and we'll grow our winter crops. Okay, so this summer, like I said, last winter we grew snow peas, and this summer we're going to grow cucumbers. Yeah. And Jake and I, we really love cucumbers, and last year we grew 1 row of cucumbers, but this year we decided to put in a whole big trellis, and they're going to be covered with cucumbers, and we'll be eating them every day, won't we, Jake? All right. So Jake, last winter, what was some of the things that you helped me with when we were growing, you know, the Swiss chard and the kale? Remember, you come out here and help me remove the, you know, the plants that were interfering with the crops. So what are those called? Weeds. That's right. So that's one thing that all gardeners have to contend with, is you get a lot of good plants, but you got to remove the weeds. Isn't that right, Jake? So we come out here and we pick them by hand, or we use our little hand tools, and we get all the weeds out, so we get lots of good veggies, right? All right. On each side of the toothpick. You got it. That's it. Come on now. Let's go. See, watch this. We're just gonna put enough on there to cover it over. Like, see, like that? But you don't want to cover the toothpick. That means you got too much dirt. How's that? You can do that, right? So just sprinkle here. Here you go. I just sprinkle it on. You cover it up, but don't cover up the toothpick all the way. That's good. That's good. The toothpick still needs to show.
So good, so good, so good.
Wonderful. You know, watching Jake with his grandfather, I'm reminded of a quote from Elizabeth Lawrence, one of my favorite quotes about the garden. There is a garden in every childhood, an enchanted place where colors are brighter, the air is softer, and the morning more fragrant than ever again. So gardeners by nature invest in the future, but watching John and Jake represents the essence of gifting wisdom and love to the next generation. Thank you very much for your tour. Now back to Peggy C. and Donna.
All right, Miss Peggy, two more. Present number 8.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm getting repeats. Susan Hancock.
There you go. And present number 9
is John Townswick.
Right down the hall. Can you imagine? All right, let's go.
All right. Our fourth and final garden is that of John Llewellyn and Robert Lewis in Glendora. Some members of the congregation have been to this garden for some of the most highly sought after pick event parties. Feeling Gatsby, anybody?
Oh, yeah.
This garden introduces us to a most significant component of garden design, that of the use of outdoor rooms for various activities. Sitting in reflection, having a one-on-one conversation, being together with a group to eat, drink, and be merry, and sit around the fire pit. This concept emerged in the Italian Renaissance gardens of the 15th and 16th centuries. It has the effect of making the garden area seem much more spacious by dividing it into discrete rooms for various purposes. By not being able to see the whole upon entering, it has the illusion of stretching space as the visitor moves through a gate and around a corner. So let's listen to John tell us about the special environment that he has created.
Hi everyone, I am John Llewellyn and I live here in Glendora with my husband Robert Lewis, and I'm the one that's going to give you a little tour of my gardens. So come on. So as you can see, I enjoy plants, and Robert says I enjoy them too much, but I plant everything I can, grow everything I can, because it's like an experiment. So I was saying earlier that the gardens are, in my opinion, like Arboretum meets crazy science experiment. So it's manicured, but yet a lot of stuff just is allowed to do its thing. That's how I find out what works and what doesn't. So believe it or not, as green and growing as it is, a lot of stuff doesn't make it. So we might see some warts and scars along the way, but that's all part of it. So here we have a hummingbird favorite. This is a salvia. This is Victoria blue salvia. And bees and hummingbirds, nuts. Well, I mean, I'm surprised they're not, well, the hummingbirds wouldn't be, but they go nuts for this. This will get really big through the summer, about twice this height and really thick. And then we have the rest of the front, just, it's kind of small, I think, compared to the back, but it's all, you can see just, I mean, a ton of plants. This right here.
So John, how long have you lived here for?
Oh, well, when we got here, we bought the house 22 years ago. The yard was nothing. A bank had bought it and they ripped everything out. There was nothing, like dead grass, nothing. So everything's been planted, and that's been kind of fun. This, unfortunately, I can't see anything that would really give it, well, you can see a little bit here. This is called a strawberry tree. And this is a big shrub or a small tree, and they're very slow growing. This one's been here for, well, this one was actually here before the tree. That's why it's here. So it's very slow growing, but these start out green, and then they turn yellow, bright yellow. They get twice that size, and then they turn as red as a strawberry, and they are edible. They're a little tart, and there's not a lot to them, so I don't think people really harvest them. But you can see we have orchids poking out over there.
So everything in your front, and then we'll see your backyard, you designed and planted yourself, the landscape?
Everything.
Wow.
Everything. And it wouldn't have been possible without Robert's help. He likes to say, I'm the designer and he's the hired muscle. So he helps me with all the hardscape, and you know, we imported all this. You'll see rock paths everywhere. We imported this ourselves in a pickup truck from a, what do you call it? A rock place. I can't even think right now.
A rock quarry.
Yeah, you know, quarry, yeah, where you can buy this stuff. And it's probably about 6 inches of sand under here, and under that, it's weed fiber. So you will get, I probably only pull out 3 weeds a year from this.
So that helps with the weeds, obviously. That's why you guys did the path.
Why we did it, and it drains. So it's nice when we do get rain. It doesn't get muddy. It drains, and you don't have to worry about cracks. And you can move stuff if you have to run something underground. So it's very nice. It's very convenient that way.
So how do you know what to plant?
Well, for me, everything is an experiment, and I like it that way because I look at gardening. For me, it helps me with my soul. It helps me with my meditation. It helps me physically. So for me, especially because I have panic anxiety disorder, and this is one of the few things that actually calms me down. It's physical and it's mental, and I like to research. So I'll plant stuff and I'll read a little bit about it, and I've experimented, and I'll see pictures, and I think that's really cool. And lots of times it fails. but a garden's kind of like life, right? It is life. It's a microcosm of like, everything doesn't go perfect.
Yeah.
So it's all work.
Yeah,
some rewards, some not. You know, we made this little courtyard because this house oddly doesn't have a front patio, which is odd. So we made one. We planted these hedges, so it'd be a little bit private, and it's nice. You can sit out here. For some reason, in the summer, this is the best place to sit and watch bats. We get bats that like to circle the trees. They're catching bugs, you know? And so they'll come right down to the patio, whoosh right past you, never bother you. They're eating. Yeah, so.
Now these plants, are you starting them from seeds? You buying them?
Both.
Okay, you do both.
Sometimes they're cuttings from people, sometimes they're seeds. I buy them at different places, like the Huntington Library and Botanical Gardens has sales, the Arboretum. This is an old fountain that you can barely see.
I love that.
And it was really old, and it stopped really holding water well. And so I didn't want to throw it out, so I turned it into a tiered garden. You've seen these before. Yeah. And of course, with my kind of planning, I put everything in it, and some stuff thrived and some didn't, but there you go. And here's some milkweed, which butterflies, especially monarchs, go nuts over. It'll be growing more during the summer, popping up. Yeah, and these just finished. There's still some blooms. They just finished blooming, and they get these little spikes for the seeds, which is kind of weird. They're like little satellites, but you could see the pink blooms and over here too. And if you rub them, they smell like citronella.
Oh.
You break them up, and they're citronella geranium.
Interesting.
And they smell like a really good, citronella.
Oh, and do they work like
yes.
citronella?
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
They help keep mosquitoes away.
Yes.
They say you can even rub it on. You crack the leaf and kind of rub it on. I have some citronella oil that I use, but you know. And,
let's see your backyard, John. I'd love to go back there.
Let's go to the backyard.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, you want to see the Primrose and Dusty Miller? I think this is a really cool combo. I've never done that before, but
I think it's beautiful.
It works.
Yes, I love it.
Complete accident.
Yeah, I love that.
That's what I mean. Happy accidents, right? Yeah.
I know. I love this.
This is more salvia. These I grew from seed here. They're really good to plant in things because they're kind of bouncy, stalky. So if they kind of are coming up through things, it holds them up better. And this is another hummingbird favorite. This is Mexican sage. And this stuff is indestructible, loves the heat. And you can pretty much walk out here any time of day and there's at least one hummingbird working it. I try to plant plants that bring butterflies, bees, and birds. So whether it's berries or nectar, because why not?
Yeah. What are some of your favorite things to plant?
I love salvias. I love salvias. Roses don't do as well here because where there's sun, it's really hot here in the summer. And then I have lots of shade. We built in lots of shade.
Yeah. Let's see it. It's so beautiful back here.
So, side yard. This is interesting for some people. I kind of am a little nutty for geraniums. They're a lot of maintenance. These flowers are kind of towards the end. I will trim them off because the flowers get ugly. They take forever to fall off.
You do trim them off, you said?
I do cut them off, and it keeps it blooming. And I feed my geraniums. I recommend everybody feed them with a Miracle Grow, either an Orchid Miracle Grow or regular Miracle Grow. A lot of people don't, but if you feed them, they will bloom like crazy. These are cuttings from around the yard. I just put these in the ground like 2 days ago. And I guarantee if you pull one up right now, there'll be little roots started. You just keep the soil really moist for a week or so, and then they'll just start rooting.
Same with succulents, right? I have done it with succulents, but I didn't know the geraniums.
Yes, succulents you can't. It's really hard. Only way you can really kill succulents is if you plant them in a non-draining pot or area. Yes. You can make them rot. But so too much care. So there's things that I want to redo. This thing's been in here like, I don't know, years. And a lot of succulents, trail. So I've got to come in here and I will repot it. I'll rip everything out, save the good ones, stick it in a pot. That's why there's always something to do. Basil, I plant, this year no crops, but I will plant herbs.
This is beautiful back here.
This is the
secret garden.
Yes, we like it. We go for a magical look. You should see it at night. I mean, it's gorgeous during the day because you can see the plants better, but we have lights all over the place, and somebody told me this a long time ago, you make it look magical. And the thing is, when kids come over, they love the yard. We try to have little statues and things, and they think of it as like a fantasy land or something.
Yeah, it looks like Alice in Wonderland, or
yeah.
So like the secret garden from
it is.
Yeah,
it is. So things like this great big shell pot, looks like a shell, and with a sea urchin coming out of it or something. It's just fun. This looks like a fountain, but this is actually the bird spa. Yes, I didn't know it would be. But we even get orioles and blue jays and everything. They bathe every day in that thing. They get on the top. I think they like it because they can't drown. It's very shallow. So they get in there and
now these look like roses, right?
Those are roses.
Those
yes.
are your roses.
They're a little bit towards the end because, like I said, those roses have been on there about 2 weeks. There's a whole new batch coming up.
I see. Oh yeah,
it's a floribunda. This one's called Eureka, and it's a great golden yellow, but it blooms off and on like this all summer. It'll have a burst, cut all the old ones off, another burst, cut them off. Yeah, I had more roses, but like I said, we planted the sycamore. Oh yeah, this is a beautiful tree. Yeah, it's really pretty. I have mums growing. Those are about to bloom down there.
So where do you get your inspiration from?
Literally places I've gone. Obviously the Huntington Library, Arboretum, other arboretums, botanical gardens, and also actually one of my biggest inspirations is villas in Europe. When we've been to Europe over the years, the really old villas, oh my God, they kept up and open. They're old. I mean, we're talking 500, 300 years old. The hardscape is old. That's why we go for this. Yeah. We laid all this ourselves because we like something that looks like it's been here longer. Yeah. And they always have this kind of look. Plants growing everywhere, secret fountains, little places like that. So.
Now, how long is this? You have a lot here. How long does it take to maintain this?
Well, this time of year, it's busy. Yeah. Because everything just takes off. If I let everything go out here, probably in 2 months, it'd be nothing but plants. But the rest of the year, not so much. Summer, everything slows down. It just blooms. Fall, you get blooms, but it's not. This is the growing season. So I would say in the spring, I'm out here a little bit every day, maybe for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I just keep at things like, oh, that's dead. Oh, that's growing over the path.
You just pull it or cut it.
Yeah, not a lot of weeding. And you can see that's an old cabinet that we used to have in the house. And I didn't want to get rid of it. So every year I kind of coat it with a protective coat to keep it from completely falling apart. but it's funky.
So John, tell us some last minute tips for gardeners. Where could they start if they're feeling inspired by your garden?
I tell people, do a little bit. You know, that's what this is. This has been a little bit. We didn't sit down with a grand plan. We just did, like, you know, this corner, like take a 10 by 10 foot area or whatever, and just, I want this, you know, and just start, kind of map it out, plan, but just kind of be open to change. We used to have regular chairs here, but then not too long ago, so that the plants could be seen, because the chairs have high backs and stuff, and it's a fire pit. That's a fire pit there. So we just got these cement benches, and it looks much more like the villa, you know. I'm especially fond of Villa Estes in Rome, and it looks, I mean, it's more grand than this, but, you know, it looks a lot like this.
Yeah, I think you have definitely a little Villa Este here in Glendora.
Hey. Nice job.
Thank you so much, John. You know, a couple of things I really like about this garden, the very strategic and specific use of certain plants that attract birds and butterflies, putting a water element, very important to attract the fauna to your environment. And that just adds motion and life and interest. It's wonderful. And the other thing, of course, is the very extensive use of garden ornament. So pots and little found things, a dry at night to see it. The lights add part of this atmosphere and make the garden rooms feel like a place you want to stop and stay for quite a while to spend time. There's always something of interest, and it's indeed magical, as he said. So let's see, now to Peggy C. and Donna.
All right, we're on down to the last two prizes. Number 10, where are you, Peg?
Ta-da. We've got, hold on. Debbie Bernard.
Huh, huh. I will make sure that one gets delivered to Connecticut, whatever.
Did I really get a prize?
Yes.
Wow, that's exciting. I never win anything. Thank you, guys.
Connecticut, what the heck? I may just abscond with that one.
Well, I have a feeling I may never see this prize, but thank you for the thought anyway.
Okay, next. Last one. Last one's a big wine basket. Big wine basket.
Linda Eldricken.
Whoa.
Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Great. Well, folks, I think we have a little bit of time. If there are any questions that you might have, you've been using good use of the chat for some questions. I know someone did ask John Llewellyn the name of the plant that has the citronella-like fragrance. I couldn't quite identify it myself from the video. So John, are you on here and can you tell us that? I don't see him.
I think we lost John. He was trying to get on at noon today, so I think he had a schedule glitch.
Okay, all right. Well, are there any other questions? Either just speak out, or you can raise your little, we go back to gallery view, you can raise your hand or put your little signally hand up. There's a question in the chat. Are birds good for pollinating a garden? If so, are hummingbirds better than, say, sparrows? I'm going to ask Brian to answer that first because he's Mr. Gardening Wizard from the internet. So what did you find out?
I usually lean on my past professor friend for those types of advice, Peggy.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by pollination, and I wrote down the Mexican sage from his garden. I think it's just fantastic to want to bring the birds and the other pollinators in, but not something I have a lot of experience with.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else have a knowledge of bird pollinators, Debbie?
No,
Okay.
I have a different question.
Okay, hold on. I would say that, yeah, birds have the potential to do pollination as they visit flower to flower. They can be taking pollen with them. They don't have the same mechanisms on their bodies that insects do, like bees have these little bristly things, and you've probably seen bees that are just covered with pollen that they can carry around. But certainly there's that potential. I'm not an expert on it, but there could be that. Okay, okay, Debbie, let's go with your question.
I have two. One is, does the lady who gets this basket drink wine?
Wait, if you get something you can't use, guys, give it away to somebody else.
Okay.
All these baskets are random shot. That's a good question, Deb. You get it, give it away to somebody else.
The second one is, there are so many pots in these gardens, and I personally say no more pots. So do you all have drip irrigation? I didn't see any hangers that go from the drip to the pots. How do you do that?
Anybody?
Because I was saying in the chat there, if I have to be held responsible to water a plant, it's gonna die. I cannot be held responsible. I can't keep anything alive. I barely keep my husband and I alive. So I don't use any type of, I have one little tiny drip irrigation, and that's on 3 hangers that are along the long side of my house. But that's hooked into a sprinkler head. So the sprinkler head feeds the irrigation system. It goes into those 3 little hangers, but everything else is a modified in-ground sprinkler system. So I have multiple fancy nozzles, especially around my garden, that direct the water into it. And then I have some, different nozzles that makes water pool in other places. But I go full automation. I have a little Wi-Fi thing with my phone, and I have these zones set up and all of this. And if I have to be responsible to turn anything on and off, it's not going to happen. So everything's automated in my yard.
I have a lot of spikes that from the drip irrigation to each plant, because I'm always in Southern California. I'm always concerned about getting the foliage wet and then burned by the sun.
Yeah, and that's why that to me I water in the middle of the night at 1 a.m. And so I don't tend to get a lot of burnt foliage. Sometimes on the roses I do notice that because they're in a full sun spot.
Judy, what do you do?
Good. I water a lot in my pots. I have a lot of pots, but I'm retired. So I have time, and I've made it, this is one of the ways I relax, with a hose in my hand. But I also place the pots as much as I can in filtered shade or together in areas where, okay, all of you guys, you're together, you don't need very much. All of you guys over here, I'm gonna need to watch you very carefully, because I'm kind of using more and more pots as I get older, because I think it's easier to maintain some of the plants. And I've run out of garden space. So I can always find a place for a new pot. But I must say, in Southern California, if you plant in pots, you are going to be watering. And if you go away on vacation, you'd better have somebody who likes to hold a hose or a watering can. That's the truth. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Ruth Abel had her hand up.
Oh, okay, thank you, Ruth.
I was just delighted to see everybody so concerned about the birds and the bees and the, all the little butterflies and all, because they're not doing well in today's world.
No.
Yep, our gardens can be.
They have a sanctuary in my corner of the world.
Yeah, right.
Good.
Our gardens can be very valuable for that. That's very true. Thank you, Ruth. Yeah. Yeah. Here's a question from the chat, and that's just sort of an overall, what would our gardeners say are the top easiest things to grow in our area?
Nandina.
Nandina, yeah. It'll even reseed itself.
Garlic plant.
Garlic is easy. Everything grows here. It's, I don't kill a lot. what would be, in terms of flowers, bulbs are so easy. You just buy them by a bag, the bag full, and you can put them in a pot, you can put them in the ground, you know, wherever you put them, as long as they get a little bit of water, they grow a beautiful flower. So it's one of those practices and patience as well. You don't get the flower for 6-8 months sometimes after you plant it.
Yeah. Bougainvillea is like crazy.
Yep, it is. I'm trying to propagate it right now. I don't know if any of the other gardeners have had propagation success, but I'm interested in about 25 bougainvillea plants. So I'm growing my 2 large ones out so I can start harvesting and propagating them. So we'll see.
Brian, there's a question about your bulbs again. About
you take your bulbs out of the ground.
Digging your bulbs.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't realize you're supposed to take bulbs out of the ground until I had them for 2 or 3 years. And so many people do take their bulbs out of the ground. We have such mild winters here that my bulbs come back year after year. They just, I leave them in the ground and I don't take them out. The only time I take them out is when I want to move stuff around. So if a flower didn't grow very well in a certain area, I'll yank it at the end of the year and put it somewhere else and it'll grow in that other place. But I don't take my tubers out either, my dahlias. So I have about 4 big dahlia plants and I hack them off at the end of the winter, at the end of the summer, and they come back beautiful every year. I never take them out of the ground.
I think things like tulips, which really do require a cold chill in the wintertime. Tulips don't last all that long in Southern California. They'll bloom the first year you plant them, second year, third year. And then after that, you might get some leaves and no flowers. But other things, and there's a question, what's the easiest bulb to grow? I have grown masses of daffodils, not here in Claremont, but where I lived in the San Gabriel Valley. And until they get too crowded, which means they're just too tight in the soil, they just go and go and go. And that's what I would say. The question was easiest to grow. Brian, what would you say?
I would say lily for sure. You know, lilies come there right now. I've got Asiatic, and I don't know what the white ones are called. Easter lily, I guess I would call it. But those types of lilies just they require little to no work whatsoever. They're the kind that are sturdy enough, they don't need to be propped up. Some of the more delicate bulbs need a pin in them to keep them standing straight up, but lilies just grow. I have one in my backyard that's got to be 8 foot tall, and it gives me about 10 flowers on it. So they're very easy.
And daylilies.
Yes.
Oh, daylily, sure. If you want something that produces multiple flowers, that's a great, it's a tuber, isn't it?
It's a tuberous root. So they're real fleshy roots. You buy a clump of those. Yeah.
I wanted to recommend something for people that like cut flowers. I've, in the last probably 10 years or so, started planting astromerias from just one little pot. And they do really well here. I was so surprised and at how they would just take over. I've probably got 4 or 5 patches where you could pick an armload of any, any for a long time of the year. They just come back. They're really fun to pick because you can they like to be just pulled out of the ground and then trim them off the height you want, and they'll just come right back.
And they last a long time.
Yeah, they do. And they're also Peruvian lilies, I think, or Astromeria. It's kind of a hard name to remember, but you will just have all the cut flowers you want with those and very little care involved.
Yep, I love that.
At Lowe's, they're called Lily of the Incas.
That sounds right.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I'm gonna try that.
Oh, do.
And when I buy them at Vaughn's, they last 3 weeks.
Yeah, they do. They're fabulous. Yeah, the ones at the farmers market last even longer. They're incredible. They're really fresh. Just to catch up, somebody asked, is it too late to plant bulbs this year? Yes, it is. For the they've already flowered primarily, and they wouldn't be available to buy them until the fall. But sometimes you can find South African bulbs, and they're quite interesting too. And those, I don't know that they're in the stores now. I think it's a little late, but they flower a little bit later, and they're a different kind of type.
I wonder, Peggy, if you couldn't get away with a Stargazer Lily, because that's the very last one. Like July it comes.
Yeah.
So if you put a Stargazer Lily bulb in the ground now, you might.
Work. I don't see them at the store now, though. You know, they tend to grow them with sell them with the other stuff. But if you can find them, maybe online you could find them. Here's something important from our one of our congregational veterinarians who says, "Careful, lilies and cats don't mix." So don't let your children marry cowboys, and don't let your cats chew on the lilies. Not good. So good to know.
I need to keep cats away from my yard. That's perfect.
Good. Okay. Now Amanda had her hand up apparently, and I missed it. So is she still here with a question?
Yeah, no worries. I wanted to know, I have way too big of a garden budget and I can't afford my own habits. So how do you do this on a shoestring?
Oh my God.
You hide money from your spouse?
Oh yeah. Well,
propagating is cheap. So you can propagate a lot. I've propagated lots of succulents around the yard. And so that's snap and stick in the ground right next to it and it grows. So those are super easy. Propagating, different types of things. Bulbs, when you pull them out of the ground, you can break off the little babies around them and then make those. But, there are value ways of stretching your dollar, but it's an expensive habit. Or hobby.
And ask your friends for cuttings.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's always good.
Yep. Mm-hmm. When you're dividing your agapanthus, could I have some? When absolutely. Gardeners are very generous that way. Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's a good comment somebody just made in the chat. The local Buy Nothing Claremont site is always giving away cuttings. They're always giving away cuttings.
Very good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Can I actually then follow up with what's your best advice for propagating successfully? I'm not ever very good at it. Maybe that's the problem.
I use root hormone powder. It's just a little tiny jar or something. And so right now I'm propagating boxwood and bougainvillea, and I'm having very, mixed results, but I don't know.
Well, those are not easy to propagate. So if you're getting any roots on, someone asked a question in the chat about pruning woody plants. Sorry, I'm unstable. Yeah, somebody asked about pruning woody plants, and that's a bit of a skill. You do need to do a little research. It has to do with if it's a flowering plant, I want the flowers, I want the seeds, I want the fruits. If you prune it at the wrong time, you might cut off all the buds that are going to result in flowers and then fruit. And so you do need to research the various things. Sunset Western Garden Book is okay on that. You can look up whether it's camellias or, flowering shrubs like forsythia, things like that. You want to be sure you're cutting them at the right time because you can sort of have a plant with no flowers when that's what you really wanted. So it does take a little trick. Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time. And so I'm going to close. I'm going to just remind us during this time of COVID we've just been through, let's hope it's over. The garden has really been a sanctuary for so many of us, even if we don't have our own garden. We've gone to the parks, we've gone to the nature trails. And I think it really has taught us about the healing effects of the garden, being in the presence of God's creation, watching the cycles of the sky and the wind and the insects and the flowers. I think it reminds us of the slow and steady pace of nature. Just wait for it and it will come. And that's something that we probably still need to keep learning over and over. We need to be patient and be slow and steady with what is to come. So I'd like to close with another quote. This one is sort of modified from John Muir, who was talking about forests, but we changed it to be about gardens. And into the garden I go to lose my mind and find my soul. So I hope you've enjoyed this trip through 4 beautiful gardens and the expertise of some of our congregation members. And thank you for your support of Inland Valley Hope Partners. I'm going to turn it to Donna for the last comments.
Oh, thank you so much. Our little subcommittee, which was Peggy Constantine, Dorothy, Aaron, Karima, and myself, the little subcommittee was a little powerhouse on this adventure, our first virtual ever. I think we will do more virtuals. Your support, by the way, raised over $1,600 for Inland Valley Hope Partners. And thank you so much for your support, everybody. And we will be email in charge, let you know where you get your raffle prizes, pick them up. And some of you still have your watering cans to pick up. Thanks again for your support. It's been fun. Take care. Stay well. Stay well. Go sit in a garden, huh?
Yes. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Enjoy.
Yeah,
with a glass of wine. That's even better. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.